Show.
And I'm Cameron Word.
So thank you so much for joining us. And we are almost getting towards the end of the month.
Yeah, I can smell the end.
Oof.
It's in the air.
How does it smell?
It smells like...
how does it smell?
Accomplishment.
Oh!
It smells like success.
Wow.
We spent the whole month studying hard.
I know.
It's the sweet smell of accomplishment.
And I think... You know, in this very busy, hectic, and stressful world, I think everybody is under a lot of stress.
Yeah.
Or a fancy word, duress.
Duress.
Yeah.
D-I-R-E-S-S.
D-U-R.
Yes. I don't even... D-U-R-E-S-S. Even native speakers have trouble spelling.
So, you know, there's so many things coming at us, but to be able to set aside time for yourself every day, 10 minutes or 15 minutes, to just do something for yourself is a huge accomplishment.
Oh, yeah.
To me, I feel. So, and I think you should keep it up. Because we need that. It's kind of like to recharge in some ways.
Yeah.
So don't stress about not improving your English. Just remember, just doing it is the big thing. Being able to be consistent is an accomplishment.
Because a lot of things in life we don't get to choose, right?
Yeah.
But being able to choose to do, like, if you want to study English, choosing to do it and doing it. That's such a big confidence booster.
It sure is.
Yeah.
So, everyone, if it's not improving, no worries. You're fine. Okay, let's talk about the 30-day health challenge. Congratulations on your first 2 weeks. So, already 2 weeks have passed. Let's see what's going on. Let's look at the expressions that we're going to cover. At first glance.
This means when you first look at something, what your impression of it is.
Okay. And how about it turns out?
Yes. It is the result of something. In the end, this is the way it was.
Right. How about if you gloss over? G-L-O-S-S.
So to gloss over something means that you are kind of skipping over it, or you might mention it, but very, very short, because you kind of want to not show how bad it is. It's a bad thing that you're trying to go over it.
All right, you get the idea. Let's go ahead and listen to our dialogue.
Congratulations on your first 2 weeks, Taylor. What's been your biggest challenge?
At first glance, I thought the food would be the hardest part. But it turns out that getting outside to walk when the weather is bad was worse.
I go to the underground shopping center when it rains.
Why didn't I think of that? I've been walking in the rain and getting soaked.
That shows how committed you are.
I've spent too many years glossing over my weight gain and poor health, but not anymore.
Okay, let's take a look at the power dialogue. Brian starts out with, congratulations on your first 2 weeks, Taylor. What's been your biggest challenge?
So, this health challenge it's a challenge.
Yeah.
Right? There's a reason why it's a challenge, health challenge.
Well, yeah, but I think the word has lost some of its meaning.
True.
Because on the internet now, everything's a challenge.
Yeah. And it's not so challenging. Okay, Taylor says, at first glance, I thought the food would be the hardest part. But it turns out that getting outside to walk when the weather is bad was worse. Okay, 2 things going on here. First, at first glance.
Yes.
Now, is he looking at something? Because the word glance means to look at something quickly. So what is at first glance?
Right, so this may not necessarily be about looking at something, but it is the feeling of my first thought when I saw the challenge. So, yeah, he's maybe still looking at the overall challenge, the plan or whatever, but the feeling of looking at something isn't as strong as saying, my first impression of this was.
My first impression, yes. So he thought, eating was going to be hard. Not eating this and not eating this, that would be the hard part.
Yeah.
But then it turns.
Yeah.
There's a twist.
Yeah.
But it turns out that getting outside to walk when the weather is bad was worse. So it turns out, feels like, you came to this realization.
Yeah.
Like you had a aha moment.
This feels sometimes very similar to Korean 알고 보니.
알고 보니.
Like
okay.
you are kind of learning something or realizing something. Right? So it turns out as I didn't know how, I didn't know the end result, or I thought the end result would be different, but it turns out, and then you're giving your realization.
Yeah. Okay. So exercising, walking when the weather is bad was worse. So was worse is actually our power pattern.
Yeah. Was worse. This is giving a comparison in the past, right? So you have to be careful. It is not worst. It is not what we call the superlative, the number one bad. It is worse, the comparative, W-O-R-S-E.
Okay. Now, most of you are familiar with the pattern A is worse than B.
Yes.
That's the common grammatical structure that we learn.
Yes.
But the way it's used here, it's definitely more conversational. So you are comparing two things, but was worse is at the end.
Right. So you're already giving A a sentence before.
Yeah.
And then in this sentence,
food was bad.
Yeah, food was bad, but was worse. So it's the same structure, but the order is a little mixed around.
You're right.
Right?
So it doesn't always have to be, I like to tell everyone that it doesn't always have to be A is worse than B structure. You can divide it into two sentences, make it longer.
Right. You could say A was bad. B was worse.
Yes.
That structure does work as well.
There you go. Brian says, I go to the underground shopping center when it rains.
Hey.
No? 안 돼?
You know what they say? There's no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing. So if it's raining, you go outside.
You take an umbrella.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's lightning, no umbrella.
No.
Just a raincoat.
Okay. Lightning.
Umbrellas are metal. It's not good with the lightning.
What does Taylor say?
Why didn't I think of that? I've been walking in the rain and getting soaked.
Okay, so why didn't I think of that is another great expression, phrase.
Yeah.
Why didn't I think of that means, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I should have thought about that. So I've been walking in the rain and getting soaked. S-O-A-K-E-D.
Yes.
So you get wet, but this is more than just wet.
Right.
Yeah.
It's more than just wet. This is like saying humpa.
Oh,
like it's just completely wet.
Yeah.
And if you think of soak, like with a sponge.
Yeah.
Like when a sponge soaks up water.
Right.
And it's just like there's so much water.
Right.
In the same way, your shirt can be wet and, it's got
a little wet.
It's a little wet. But if you're just like out in the rain for an hour, 2 hours, you would say, I'm soaked.
My goodness. Why doesn't Taylor use an umbrella?
Or a raincoat.
Gosh. Taylor,
get with the program.
My goodness. Okay, Brian says that shows how committed you are.
Then Taylor says, I spent too many years glossing over my weight gain and poor health, but not anymore.
So what is Taylor really saying? He spent a lot of time glossing over his weight gain and poor health.
Yes. So when Taylor says glossing over her weight, she's saying, it's not really that big of a deal. Maybe she kind of knows that it's a problem, but she's trying to pretend that it's not a problem. She doesn't want to deal with it. She doesn't want to think about it. So she's just glossing over it.
So glossing over in some ways is kind of like a little avoidance.
Right.
Huh?
Yeah.
Kind of turning a blind eye, as we say.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, to gloss means to cover something with like paint or shiny stuff. So, sometimes like on your wall,
Uh-huh.
there's like a stain,
Yeah.
and you don't clean the stain,
Uh-huh.
maybe just try and paint over a little bit.
And then you just...
You just kind of leave it. Or there's like a hole in the wall.
Yeah.
There's like a hole, but it's a small hole.
So you put gum?
You just put like gum and just like paint over it.
Yeah,
You're not actually fixing the problem.
Right,
the
right.
problem's still there, but you're trying to pretend like it's not there.
Oh, interesting. Okay. We'll give you more examples in just a bit. Let's go ahead and listen to that dialogue.
Congratulations on your first 2 weeks, Taylor. What's been your biggest challenge?
At first glance, I thought the food would be the hardest part. But it turns out that getting outside to walk when the weather is bad was worse.
I go to the underground shopping center when it rains.
Why didn't I think of that? I've been walking in the rain and getting soaked.
That shows how committed you are.
I've spent too many years glossing over my weight gain and poor health, but not anymore.
Let's quickly review. It's time for Power Note, pages 148 and 49. At first glance.
Yes.
Meaning when you first see or consider something.
Yeah. It's not all, it's often about what you see first.
First impression.
Yeah, your first impression, but it's not always just seeing something.
Okay. What kind of bird is that?
At first glance, I thought it was a golden eagle, but I'm pretty sure it's a vulture.
So in this case, it really is seeing.
Yes.
Like, 처음 봤을 때. Yeah, when you saw it for the first time.
Yes.
But it's a vulture. Eagle and vultures. Vultures are really big.
Yeah, they are. Eagles are big too.
They're big, but vultures are like, I think they're just bigger. I think. I've seen a vulture in Africa.
Yeah.
And they're huge.
Yeah.
Scary. They're eating dead stuff. Okay. At first glance, it looked like a fake mustache, but it was real.
You know, some men,
Yeah.
they like, the way their facial hair grows,
Yeah.
it just doesn't look real.
It doesn't look real.
It doesn't look real.
Right.
And so it looks like a fake
Or
mustache.
it could be like, at first glance, I thought it was a wig, but it's not.
But it's not.
Yeah. Or at first glance, I thought it was real hair, but it's not.
But it's not. It's
Right.
fake. Yeah. So those are all visual types.
Yeah.
But you might say, for example, at first glance, I thought this was a good university, but honestly, the teachers aren't that good.
No.
And that isn't necessarily about visually what you
seeing.
saw.
Yeah.
But that's more about your impression of what you thought the school was. Yeah.
At first glance, I thought the company would be a good fit for me. But then I realized that, not a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like at first glance is your first impression or what you saw the first time, but then it turned out to be something different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually there's a twist, there's a turn.
There's a twist.
I thought it was this, but actually it's
this.
different. Yeah.
And that's why we have the expression turn out, which is often used together.
Yes, it is often used together.
Yeah, at first glance, I thought it was this, but it turns out.
Yes.
Which means it ended up or it resulted in.
Yes.
Did you find your car keys?
It turns out they were in my back pocket. So that's the twist. We were searching for my keys the whole time, but they were actually just in my pocket.
That's right. It turns out the restaurant charged my credit card twice.
Oh, no.
Okay. So when you look at this definition, to result or end up in, you may think it is the conclusion, what happened as a result. But you have to remember when you use this expression, turn out, there is a bit of a twist here, right?
Yeah, it's most often used with a twist or a mystery that the solution is being found.
Yes.
Like there is like the ta-da, reveal. There is a case, though, where you go, you know what, Kristen?
What?
Turns out I'm right. He was stealing money from the bank.
Oh.
So I had this idea, he works at the bank. I think he's stealing money.
Yeah.
And then you're like, he would
never.
And as it turns, and then a few months later, turns out I was right.
Right. So it's almost like there is something of a big reveal in that case.
Yes.
Like,
You
This
open
is
the
why it says-
curtain and
yes,
ta-da!
that's it. That
Yeah.
is the feeling of this expression, turn out. Yeah, it turns out he has another family in South America.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay, so there is that element of surprise.
Surprise, a mystery being solved, or like we said earlier, a twist. The opposite of what you thought
Yeah.
is actually true.
That's right. Okay. Gloss over something it's a great expression. It means to cover something up or to kind of minimize something important or bad. Meaning, you're just kind of like covering it,
Yeah.
something important or bad, because you don't want to deal with it.
Right.
Okay? Did you listen to the earnings report from Jenkins Inc. today?
It was interesting. It was interesting how they glossed over their low sales and moved on to something else.
If you gloss over low sales, their low sales, what are you doing?
Maybe you mention the number and immediately go into the next topic.
Right.
You don't want to talk about that topic for very long because it's something bad.
Yeah.
So when this is
Yeah.
like something companies do,
Yeah.
politicians do.
Sure. They don't want to talk about the important thing because it's not a good thing.
Right.
So they just gloss over it.
Yeah.
Don't gloss over the fact that you got a speeding ticket, Walter.
Yeah. You know, sometimes I
Those
think
tickets.
if you're in a relationship, like a marriage, maybe one side doesn't want to tell the other side something. So they just kind of gloss over it.
Oh, yeah.
So Walter here got a speeding ticket. Doesn't want to tell his wife, maybe.
Well,
So he glosses over it.
Well, he probably has maybe 20 speeding tickets. And if he were to tell his wife
Yeah.
about all the speeding tickets, they'd be like, major fight.
It works in the other way, though.
Yeah.
Maybe the wife went shopping and she wants to gloss over how much she spent shopping.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good examples. All right. Our power pattern is blah, blah, blah was worse.
Yes.
I hated washing dishes, but having to chop onions all day was worse.
Oh, that would be. Ooh. Hanging around my little brother is bad, but babysitting 2-year-old twins was worse.
Okay. So as you can see, they're both comparisons. But was worse is always used in the end here.
Yes.
Okay. Our power vocab is soaked. S-O-A-K-E-D. Another word is drenched. When we're completely like wet.
Yeah.
Drenched, soaked, just means very wet. Do check out the definition on page 150. And let's thank our sponsor.
한국토익위원회에서